What's up YouTube? JM Comics here, and this is my first video of a new microphone that I got for my birthday. Thank you parents, I love you guys. And we're gonna talk about Uncharted today, and it's one of those franchises that I got into really recently, like because the movie was coming out, but I really loved it, and I guess it's one of my top 5 gaming franchises of all time right now. And I saw the movie twice already, but I haven't had the opportunity to talk about it until now. So let's talk about the movie and why it's a good movie, but a bad adaptation. And let's just get right into it. But first, remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts on the Uncharted movie and how you like the new audio, if you want to talk about that. So, the Uncharted movie is definitely not following the story of the games, like at all. The only characters that are from the games directly is Nathan Drake. Okay, spoilers right now for everything else that happens. Anything that happens in the movie, okay? Right now, spoiler for this movie. I'd go watch it even if I'm not into Uncharted games. I mean, I feel like knowing the games makes me like the movie more. So, I'll talk about it later. So, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. So, first and foremost, what I was saying is the only characters who are from the games and in this movie are Nathan Drake, obviously, Victor Sullivan, Chloe Fraser, and I guess, sort of, in the after credit scene, Gabriel Roman, the villain from the first game. Those are the only characters from the games in the movie. And Sam Drake from Uncharted 4. So, yeah, that's about it in terms of characters from the games. A lot of the characters that the movie focuses on are made up. Like, what's his name? Moncada, the guy Antonio Banderas plays. Is it Victor Moncada? It's not Victor Moncada. It's something Moncada. Armand Moncada. Anyway, he's the villain of this movie, supposedly, for the first 35 minutes or whatever, 45 minutes. And he's not in the games, which is really, really weird. And I don't know why they didn't just pick one of the random many villains from the games. Like, the worst part is, Moncada bears so much resemblance to a villain from Uncharted 4, Hernando Alcazar. Yes, I think that's his name. Hernando Alcazar is basically the same character. I don't know why they didn't just use the same name, because, might as well. They're not going to use Hernando Alcazar again, I bet. They don't need another Spanish sort of crime lord character. Like, they don't need to do that again. So they should have just used the name Alcazar. But whatever, that's just a pet peeve I have. I haven't seen anyone else on the internet talking about it. It's just something I wish they did. The other villain of this movie, the main villain, is Braddock. I don't know her first name, but she bears a little bit of resemblance to Nadine from the games, from Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy. But I don't think she's necessarily a direct adaptation. Like, same with Moncada. They're not direct adaptations of any characters. And even if they weren't gonna directly adapt the characters, like, for example, Victor Sullivan is not as greedy in the games as he is in the movie. They should have, at the very least, used the names of the characters. Like, you're not gonna have two characters that repeat in the same movie franchise. What's the point? So, yeah, the movie definitely strays away from the games in terms of characters. In terms of story, oh my gosh, it's not based on any game. It's a bit of an amalgamation of Uncharted 4 and I guess Uncharted 3, because it has many elements of Uncharted 3. So the main thing about this movie is it's an origin story setting up Nathan Drake and how he met Victor Sullivan, which is completely different in the games as well, because in the games Victor and Nate meet when Victor's an adult, like a young adult, and Nate is a kid. In this, or like a young preteen. In this universe or whatever, they meet when they're both adults, which is kind of weird, and for some reason Victor Sullivan is way younger than he is in the games. I understand why, because they'll make this a big franchise in the future, but still, it's really, really weird, especially when you've played all of the main games. It just doesn't make that much sense, and it feels very jarring while you watch. So yeah, that's a nice word, jarring. What was I saying before that? Okay, yeah, the story is sort of an adaptation of Uncharted 4 and Uncharted 3. I'd say mostly Uncharted 4 because of its focus on a pirate treasure, which is kind of the theme of Uncharted 4, pirates, or like pirate treasure, yeah. And, excuse my cat if you hear him in the background, okay? Additionally, the Uncharted 3 elements are mostly just, I guess you could say, him meeting Sullivan like he does in Uncharted 3, or like we get a flashback of in Uncharted 3. And the plane scene, the iconic plane scene from the games, from Uncharted 3, is recreated in this movie. I think, I don't know if I like it better in the game version of the plane scene, but I still do appreciate the plane scene in this movie. I think it tried to do something a little bit different with its adaptation. For example, he gets hit by a car, and that's how he falls off, instead of the plane having a hole. And it's over the ocean, not the desert, which is, I guess, a significant enough change to warrant a duplicate of a scene from the games. But in terms of game scenes, let's talk about game scenes. Now that we're talking about the plane's the most blatant one. It's the best one. I think it's one of the best scenes in the entire franchise. If you saw my short about Uncharted, go check it out right now. It's only 50 seconds long. I think the plane scene is the best action scene in the entire series. That's probably because of this movie. Like I'm being recency bias or whatever. But it's either that or the train scene from Uncharted 2. So yeah, I'm glad they adapted the scene. I think they did it really well. Another scene they adapted was the auction scene from Uncharted 4, and I think the movie possibly did it better. Just because Uncharted 4 really dragged out that scene with how you had to first break into the building and then break out of the building, and you didn't really get to do any of that cool intimidation or interrogation stuff that they do in the movie. Like, you don't get to actually do the nitty gritty of debating and trying to like auction off, buy the crucifix or whatever. Instead, you just got to be Nathan, like turning off the power, which is it's not as fun in the game as it is in the movie to watch. In terms of scenes from the games, I think that's about it. I mean, the pirate ship in the cove is almost exactly the same scene from the end of Uncharted 4. So, besides that similarity, the flying ships is not from any of the games. I do think that's a really cool action sequence. And this movie, I'd say its strongest quality is the action sequences. The action sequences are so perfect. Like, I mean, even though the story is kind of not that good. It's kind of a bad story. I mean, it's kind of a generic story. I do think the action sequences definitely warrant this movie's existence. It's not a movie I wish didn't exist. The action scenes make up for it. Okay, it deserves to exist just because of the amazing action that takes place. And for some reason, there's a cat in this movie. I don't know why, but I love cats, and my cat barking or meowing at the door just reminded me of that. But yeah, I guess that's cute. Yeah. Victor Sullivan's cat. It's cute. What else is there to talk about this movie? I mean, it's such a weird adaptation because I feel like there's so much to talk about at the same time, not that much to talk about because it's a very simple story. We'll talk about the story. The story is so streamlined and it's so kind of generic. It's like Indiana Jones light. And I haven't seen the Tomb Raider movie, but it can't be this shallow. There's no way it's as shallow as this movie. If it's more shallow than this movie, I'll be genuinely surprised. Someone tell me in the comment section if you've seen the Tomb Raider movie, like the newer one. But yeah, it's such a shallow plot. I don't remember too much about the plot. I don't enjoy too much about the plot. But I do like how they incorporated Sam Drake early on in this franchise. I mean, you can tell in the fourth game, Uncharted 4 or whatever, that they definitely incorporated Sam as a retcon. Like, we never heard about Sam in the other games. We didn't know Nathan had a brother or a family, a live family, besides Victor Sullivan, I guess. So, yeah, this franchise has the conveniency or leniency or whatever of coming out after Uncharted 4 and, Sam Drake's establishment in this universe. So they could already set up Sam Drake in the first movie. And, on the note of Sam Drake, I forgot the actor. I mean, I don't know his name. I never knew his name. But I recognize him from Outer Banks. I do think he's a great casting for it. Just pointing that out. He's good casting for it. And, yeah, speaking of casting, Tom Holland, I don't think he does a bad job in this movie. I think he actually suits the serious nature of Nathan Drake at times. And, Nathan Drake makes puns at times too. And this, I don't remember any puns that he made necessarily. But his biting sarcasm is definitely there from the games. And I understand that he looks like way younger than Nathan Drake. I was very upset when I first saw the trailer after playing through some of the older Uncharted games. But he's not that bad in this movie. I don't think Tom Holland is terrible. I don't think it's his fault that he looks young and that he's too young to be playing Nathan Drake. And it definitely works. They get away with it. Victor Sullivan, on the other hand, is similarly, I feel like Mark Wahlberg did the best of what he had, but I don't like the way he's written in this movie because in the games, Victor Sullivan is caring, he's kind, he's a crackhead basically, but not exactly, but you know what I'm trying to say here. He's friendly, he's benevolent. In this movie, he's very sarcastic, aggressive, and especially greedy, which are qualities that he never really exhibits in the games. All the villains in the games exhibit greed, and I don't think greed's necessarily a bad thing, but in the games, Nathan Drake is significantly more greedy than Victor Sullivan. I will stand by that, especially in Uncharted 3. I'd say, yeah, this movie is definitely an adaptation of that game to some extent. But in Uncharted 3, Nathan's the one who keeps trying to go for the treasure, while Sully's like, "Look, back off, man. We don't want to lose any lives here. We can just get away with our lives, and that's enough." Yeah, so yeah, I don't know why they made him so greedy, but I feel like it works as a separate character. But when you really think it's Victor Sullivan, it doesn't work. So just ignore the fact it's Victor Sullivan and enjoy the movie. And yeah, that big twist in the middle of the movie where Moncada gets his throat slit is just wow. That caught me by surprise. I was talking on the side to my friend and my mom who I was seeing it with, and like my whole family went and my friend. I was talking to my friend and my mom at the same time about like his accent or something, and then all of a sudden his throat gets slit, and I'm just like, what? I was so hyped up for him to be the villain because I love Antonio Banderas and everything he does. His voice is just so iconic. That's what I was talking about. I was like, he sounds just like Puss in Boots. Like, obviously he does, but yeah, that was a weird twist. I don't understand. I don't understand exactly why they did it. Because Braddock, when you look back at her inspiration in the games, Nadine's sort of an anti-hero. So I don't know why they didn't just leave Braddock as like a henchman and turn her into an anti-hero, but instead decided to make her the main villain and kill off Moncada. So that was a really weird decision, but they went with it. Final note about the main movie before I get to the after credit scenes and wrap this whole thing up. Chloe is definitely worse in this movie. I think she's the worst character transition from the game. I'd say Sullivan is not terrible in his transition, but he's just weird. Nathan Drake is fine, and Sam Drake, I guess he was the best transition, which we haven't seen much of him, so it makes sense. But Chloe Fraser, like, they just completely ruined her. Her whole thing in Uncharted 2 is that she was a bad guy, and then she turned good, and then she got her own game, The Lost Legacy. In this, she doesn't really turn good. I know they're trying to set up for the sequels and stuff, but she's just so blatantly greedy, and I understand why, because they give her a little bit of a backstory, which I don't think, whatever. They give her a little bit of a backstory, which I guess justifies some of her actions, but it doesn't make her a better character in any way. And yeah, the game character is definitely better and more complex. So she's the most, what's opposite of improved? She's the most tarnished character in this movie, I'd say. It's not the actress's fault. Sophia Ellie, I think, does a really great job in it. So it's not her fault. It's just the writing. And let's get to the after credit scene. So yeah, there's the cat I told you about earlier. Victor Sullivan has a cat. We finally get the mustache Victor has. The most iconic thing in the entire game series is Victor Sullivan's mustache and Donut Drake. But that's not the point. So we finally get to see him with the mustache. He has the guy in his backpack, and Nathan is talking to this guy named Patches or something. Gage. He's talking to this guy named Gage with an eye patch about his ring or whatever, the Francis Drake ring, which yet again calls back to Uncharted 3. And they're talking about getting a Nazi map to find the U-boat in the middle of the jungle, which is exactly what happened in Drake's Fortune, Uncharted 1. So, I don't know where this sequel's going. And then, Sully comes and helps him and gets the ring back and stuff. So, I don't know where the sequel's going. Like, are they going to try to fuse Uncharted 1 and 3 together, or Uncharted 1 and 2? They have to introduce Elena, that is for sure. If they don't introduce Elena by that point, I'm done with this franchise, like, the movie franchise. Because Elena should have been in this movie. Or at least, I don't know. I thought the girl at the beginning, the blonde girl, no joke, was Elena. But, yeah, she wasn't. So, we're definitely getting Elena in the next movie. Like, I wouldn't expect them not to give us Elena. If they don't give us Elena, that's going to be the biggest oof in cinema history. In video game adaptation history, at least. Possibly. I mean, they did kill off Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, but we don't talk about that. So, yeah, we're getting Elena, and then, I feel like it's going for a Drake's Fortune story for the next one, but I really don't know if that's an improvement over this story. Like, I like Drake's Fortune a lot, okay? More than most people. I'm not gonna say this, but I might like it better than Uncharted 2, okay? But I still don't think Drake's Fortune story is that good. Besides, like, Eddie Raja, nothing else about that story is intriguing. The aliens are they feel like too much. I do enjoy their presence, though. Victor, we think he's dead for most of the game, and it's mostly just about Lena and Nathan's romance, which I kind of respect, but they don't get romantic in this game. It's just setting up their relationship to each other in a platonic way, or somewhat romantic way, which gets developed in Uncharted 2 and 3 and 4. So, yeah. I hope it doesn't directly adapt Uncharted Drake's Fortune. They can adapt the U-boat part, and then maybe Eddie Raja as a character, and Roman, because I already mentioned him. But I hope they take a more Uncharted 3 sort of style, where it's like, it has something to do with Francis Drake's ring, and then some hidden city that's more significant than El Dorado, which is really just a statue in the games. So, yeah, that's my opinion. I hope they adapt Uncharted 3 next, and I don't know if they can adapt Uncharted 4 at this point, because this movie rips off so much from Uncharted 4. If they made Uncharted 4 as a movie, it just seemed really wrong. But I would like to see what's his name, the villain from that game. So I forgot his name. He's memorable, but I just forgot his name. So yeah, those are my opinions on the movie. If I had to give it a ranking out of 10 in terms of quality, I'd give it a 6 or 7. I'm gonna say 6.5. take that as you will. In terms of entertainment, I'd give it an A. It's a pretty entertaining movie. First time you watch it, I enjoyed it more my second time watching it because it's the first movie I've ever seen twice in the movie theaters, and honestly, I enjoyed it more the second time. So yeah, go check it out if you can. If you can't, don't stress it. I mean, it's not the best movie ever. It's definitely an entertaining movie, but it's not a great movie. And that's about it. JM Comics out.
Come out to play with the big boys, Ian, because you're about to get a proper Scottish welcome.
What?